Best advice I can give people is don't bulk up. And you know, I know that now, but in spite of that, in my career, I bulked up 3 times, and each time it was a big mistake. In the 70s, you have 3 types. You have Arnold, small waist, big muscles. You have Columbo, shorter, thick muscles. And then you have me. When you start out, basically, you're working on building up your ego. You're putting on a suit of armor, but that's your shield. That's bodybuilding as character armor. You're building layer after layer, and the you is deep down inside.
Now it just seems like drug protocols are being thrown around. Like, all right, you want to start competing? Here's drug protocol. But drugs don't make the champion because they have no base.
I think it was the Olympia 1988. They drug tested, and everybody came in looking not as good as they had been looking. And afterwards, they complained to Wayne, who ran the show. They said, "We want to see freaky muscle."
Muscle and Strength, what's up? It's Sadik, and we're back with another collaboration. This one's a little different because I want to take you back in time to a time when mass monsters didn't rule the sport, and there was one man in particular who stood out amongst the rest, and that's none other than 3-time Mr. Olympia Frank Zane. Dan and I actually boarded a flight, flew out to San Diego, and hung out and worked out with Frank. It was amazing. For you guys that don't know, Frank was responsible and known for his conditioning, his symmetry, and aesthetics that still impact the sport to this day. And you can't think about the word classic physique without thinking about Frank Zane. So get your meal ready, get ready to do your cardio, and check this one out.
So tell me a little bit about the mind-muscle connection. I feel like this is a popular topic. Everyone's always trying to work synergistically between the muscle and the mind and how to activate a certain muscle. What's your take?
I think that the mind-muscle connection is already made. You know, basically, it's a simple thing. Now we have a sort of a word or words that describe something that we've been doing all along. If you do your exercise successfully, you're focused on the movement, and at first you have to sort of make that connection. You have to, just like learning to drive a standard transmission, you have to learn how to do it, coordinate the clutch and shifting and all that. But you know, after you know how to do that, it's automatic, and that's like, it's already made, and it's like that with working out. The first time you do an exercise, you have to pay attention to every little thing to do it right and to feel it in the muscle. But after a while, it comes automatic. You just go right into it with the device you're using. You do your reps, and you feel the effect. You can feel what's happening. I pay attention to the sensation when I'm doing an exercise against the background of counting reps. And I make it so that I do all the reps that I do, usually around 10 or 12 on each exercise. After I do the exercise, I can feel the pump coming on, and then I stretch, and that makes it feel even better.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's something that happens on its own, and basically if you focus on what you're doing, but it does start with focus, is paying attention to what you're doing.
I think now, what I notice is with my fans when they ask me questions, I'm sure you get it too, everyone overthinks. You know, they're looking for the perfect training program, the perfect retracting the shoulder blades, or, you know, perfect foot position. Like, is there even a perfect, there is no perfect blueprint, you know, to give anyone. It just comes through repetition. Like, what's your take on that when everyone's overanalyzing? There's too much information out there.
It's sort of like they're coming from textbook to gym.
Yeah.
It's more about discovering what gives you a pump. I mean, you just got to focus on doing so you get the pump, the blood engorging an area and where you intended it to be. And if you did, you've done it right. But if you're always thinking, I got an email about, what about when I'm doing incline presses? You know, should I tense my scapula? Should I? No, just do the exercise.
Yeah.
You know, follow the form of the exercise, and everything will work out the way it needs to.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I don't know. I just feel like too much information equals bad. But when you're just in the gym enjoying yourself, feeling the pump, the thrill, the exhilaration, the exercise, that's where the groove and all the magic happens. Yeah. I mean, we spoke about it yesterday, the state of bodybuilding, you know, how different bodybuilding is today compared to your era. Like, we talked about how you guys would go to the beach between sessions. You'd be in a gym for 3 hours a day and then go back for an hour or two later, you know, and I don't see that anyone does that anymore. And I think that's a big difference in the physiques, the muscle bellies and the overall look. And many people would say it was better back then. What do you think is a factor that contributes to that?
I think for one thing, there are fewer people doing it then, and so we were more selective. You know, like everybody wanted to come to California and train at Gold's Gym in the early 1970s, and it was great. The people we had, they were all, you know, at a pretty high level, and the atmosphere was wonderful.
Yeah.
And then as bodybuilding grew and got more popular, you got more and more people coming that were just sort of wannabes, and you know, it basically filled up the space that we had all to ourselves before that. And yeah, we'd go to the gym and we would maybe train for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and then get lunch, and then go to the beach, and then come back and go again in the late afternoon. And that was, I spent my summers doing.
Yeah, yeah. Now, how many times were you eating a day? Like, let's say when you and Arnold were training together, like, were you guys eating every 2.5, 3 hours? Or what was your take on food back then?
I wasn't, you know, I sort of, I found myself doing certain things, and one of them was not eating that much. In other words, I didn't do this deliberately, but I noticed what was happening is as I got in better shape, I was tending to, and this is not what people are doing, I would, stretching out the space between meals and not really eating until I'm hungry. And so my motto became stay hungry longer, because when you're hungry, you're actually you're in the fat burning mode. You know, first your glucose goes, you work that, you know, you oxidize that, then your glycogen stored in your muscles and liver, that gets burned up, and then you get into burning body fat, and that's good for a good 8 hours, and not until that point is when you start burning muscle, after about not eating for 8 to 10 hours
Yeah.
even.
Wow.
And so you don't have to worry, just by eating every 2 hours, you don't have to worry about, you know, losing muscle mass. It's not going to happen. You're going to lose fat. But, you know, you make it smaller, you might, you know, not have as much energy, but still, if you go by your appearance, and that's what I always focused on, is don't go by these things that aren't the real thing. What the real thing is what you look like. And so I took a lot of photos, lots of photos, and I judged what I looked like and what I still had to do on what I was looking at in the photos. I saw weak areas, I saw good points. Some of the shots were really, really good, but the ones that were the most informative were the ones that aren't so good, you know. But I wanted to learn to see what other people, what I look like to other people. I think that's the thing. And
Yeah.
I always advocated people take photos of themselves.
So that's one of the biggest contrasts I see is the workout intensity and duration was longer. The meal frequency was shorter. It wasn't, yeah, for you. It wasn't a lot of food. What about guys like Arnold? Were they eating excessive amounts of food? Were they binge eating? Were they eating every 2 hours, 3 hours? Or what were they doing?
I think about this episode, it was like early 70s, it might have even been 1969 or 1970. We were at Denny's having breakfast, and he said, "Frank, I'll tell you the secret of nutrition." I said, "All right, let's hear it." He says, "It doesn't matter what you eat, just so you eat a lot of it." Yeah. I think,
Yeah.
whoa, that doesn't work for me. Yeah. I watched my carbohydrate intake is what I did all those years. I would basically get 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, a half a gram of carbs. So it'd be like if I weighed 200 grams of protein every day, 100 grams of carbs, enough, mainly before my workout, so I'd have enough energy to get a pump. And then my fat intake was moderately, you know, pretty low. But I got in good shape doing it. I still sort of do that. I always eat more protein than carbs.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, and fats, moderate fats.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
great.
good fats, not so much saturated
Yeah.
fats, you know, mostly things like olive oil and, you know, monounsaturated oils, almond oil, you know. But I'm not really big on using no butter, no cream.
And obviously back then, like we talked about it yesterday, it was not a drug culture, okay? Like the bodybuilding culture was not a drug culture, but there was a lot less drugs back then in terms of steroids and what you guys were using compared to now. But I know you had an extensive protocol of branched chain amino acids.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
I think that's how I got the nickname The Chemist. I was a chemistry major in college for the first 2 years, and I sort of developed that kind of scientific outlook and preparation. I kept journals and notebooks about it on everything. But you know, I basically took one of the ways I got in shape was as I got closer to contest, I would take more and more supplements, more amino acid, free-form amino acids, especially in liver extract. And it got to the point where I was taking a lot of it. In 1976, I had very disciplined the last month before that contest. I was taking 7 feedings a day, and each feeding was swallowing 100 capsules, amino acids, liver extract, oils, lecithin,
Yeah.
B complex, vitamin C, and I got amazing shape.
Wow.
You know, I mean, I know that's a lot to ask. I certainly wouldn't do it now, but I did it in such a way that, you know, and I was young and crazy too.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
experimenting all the time, but it worked.
Yeah.
Got in great shape.
So you would carry around all these pills. Probably your pockets are filled with those amino acid tablets.
I would do it at home. I wouldn't, you know, if I went out, I basically would take some,
Uh-huh.
but I generally did most of that at home, eating at home.
So what else do you do at home? So when you're not in the gym, okay, and this is an important thing because these days bodybuilders, it's only gym, sleep, eat. Like that is their life. And I noticed you have quite a few hobbies. Can you speak about them?
Well, I meditate a lot. You know, now that I'm older and I'm lighter, I don't seem to need as much sleep. So I probably sleep about 4 or 5 hours at night. And I get up and I meditate. And I get very deep doing that. I'm saying a mantra. And I get very deep. And basically, the research shows that 1 hour meditation is like 2 hours of sleep. And so I make up for that. Then I take a nap or a session. I do meditations during the day. And I use something I call mind muscle machine. It's like a pair of sunglasses with LED lights on the inside, and they flicker at different frequencies, and you hear the pulse too. And it takes you into different brainwave states. Like the faster ones tend to energize you, and the slower ones tend to make you drowsy. So I do those. I actually use one of those to fall asleep or to take a nap. I do that during the day, and then on days I work out, I usually shoot archery with my compound bow. I have an archery range here that I shoot. And I find it very good for focus, you know, about narrowing down my attention to a point and then being able to hit that point repeatedly is my goal. That's one of my hobbies. The other is I write a lot. I'm publishing stuff all the time. I have a book coming out called 31 Day Wonder Posing. Will be out in a couple of weeks. You know, last year I published my manual, the Zane Bodybuilding Manual, 436 pages. I sort of combined everything I had and you know, took out the redundancy. And you know, I enjoy doing that. It's for me, I like to write, and writing for me is sort of like I'm talking.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of I'm talking, I'm getting it down, and I get into these flows where stuff comes out where normally it doesn't. And I got also to the point of writing poetry and songs. I have a lot of stuff I wrote like that. Some really interesting things.
Yeah. What were you doing when you were competing for Olympia? Like, were you just obsessing about the Olympia and the training and the eating? Or did you have these hobbies as well? Like, what was your favorite thing to do? Like when you weren't training, when you were winning these Olympias, what was your favorite thing?
I didn't do too much else. You know, I mean, I did maybe a little bit of archery. I used to shoot archery a little bit with Arnold. But aside from that, that was it. I'm a harmonica player, but when I was training, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I was competing and doing it. When I stopped, I got back into it because I've been doing that my whole life pretty much. And even more recently, I've gotten interested in playing different musical instruments. Like I learned guitar, I played different harmonicas, chromatic, diatonic, even played bass harmonica. And then I started making bamboo flutes. I made a lot of flutes, and some were really good. I play those, but you know, that's part of my meditation during the day. Every day, I probably play about 5 or 6 different instruments.
Yeah.
Mostly flute. If I've just eaten, I'll play flute. If I'm hungry, I might play harmonica because, you know, the hungrier you are, the better you seem to play, and it prevents you from eating. And then guitar, you know, if I don't feel like putting anything in my mouth, I'll play guitar. But I enjoy it, and then I'm here. I work. I do some stuff in the gym. I do, you know, 50, 60 sit-ups every day. In the morning, we walk dogs for an hour. I get a good 2 miles in walking every morning, so I'm staying relatively good shape.
Great. That's great. We were talking before about like selfishness. So when we're competing for Olympia, I know myself, I'm an extremely selfish person when I get into Olympia training mode. And can you talk about, like, you know, athletes at the top level of their sport and how selfishness could be a tool, and how can you escape that? Like, how do you shake that feeling, like after the Olympias are done? Like, how do you now go back and be a civilized human being? And, you know, because it's a very intense me mentality.
Well, you know, I think I handled it by having a cycle that I went through every year where I would peak in the autumn. and everything was based around that. The 3 months before that were really into it and very selfish, because the training is what mattered. The 3 months before that, not quite as selfish, because I'm just sort of building my strength, preparing for the final 3 months. After I'd reached my peak, I would go into maintenance. Basically, I'd specialize on weak points, and I would do all the other stuff that I missed out on doing.
Yeah.
And so I would go about it that way, and I think that cyclic method was basically enabled me to keep going.
Yeah.
And but you know, I think that if you want to drop the selfishness, then stop competing. I mean, you have to have that mindset to do it. You really have to pay attention to all that. And I'm fortunate having a wife that understood that, and she stuck with me and helped me out. And you know, we've been married now going on 52 years. And she competed for a while too, in the early 70s, late 60s.
Yeah, I see the pictures everywhere. You guys are in incredible shape. My friend was just telling me, he's like, hey man, like, how do I juggle having a girlfriend and doing my pro debut? You know, she doesn't understand there's a level of selfishness. And I told him the same thing. There's a cycle, you know, plan a vacation with her after the show, or dedicate a couple weeks to her exclusively when the show is done. Forget about your meals and your training, leave it, you know. And I think a lot of people, they don't grasp that concept, because you see a lot of bodybuilders, you know, when they get older in age, they're alone. And it really is amazing to see the relationship dynamic you have with your wife. It's something that I aspire to have as well. And it's great to see, like, you know, just you have a life outside. Bodybuilding doesn't define you. It's a piece of you. And there's so many different pieces of you and so much more to you than just being a bodybuilder.
But you know, it's how I make my living, is training people, the Zane experience I have here, and then I'll mail order the stuff I write. And I've been doing that ever since I retired from teaching. But I'd say that to somebody who has a girlfriend that doesn't understand, take her to the gym with you. You know, get her working out, show her how it can help her. And really, you know, it's a lot easier for women in their weight training than men. I mean, men want to build all these muscles. That's not the easiest thing in the world. But with women, just a little bit of working out, a little bit of diet, they can look great. They're not interested in building, you know, a lot of definition and big muscles. And that, you know, that's not going to happen just on its own, you know, but they'll get in great shape just doing some light stuff. Like my 7.5 pound dumbbells are missing here. My wife has them upstairs. I'm trying to get them back.
That's why we got the gold ones.
Yeah, so that's a gold one.
We got the gold replacement for now. So what is your happiest moment, your competition moment? Like, what is there one particular moment in time that stands out for you when you look at your bodybuilding career as a whole? Because for me, it was when I turned pro. That was my favorite moment. You know, that one moment was defined. Like, I still, to that day, I can't match that, you know. And what was your moment that sticks out for you?
Okay, my happiest moment and my darkest moment were very close together. My darkest moment is standing on stage, waiting for them to announce the winner. And my happiest moment was when they announced me as the winner.
Yeah, but what show? Like, was it the Mr. Olympia? Was it, you know, the Mr. Universe?
Olympia, man.
The Olympia.
This is interesting. In '77 Olympia, I'm standing on stage. In that year, they decided not to go 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They want to announce the winner first. So I'm standing on stage. I'm at the end, and I'm thinking to myself, I'd say, please, universe, please give me a sign right now so I can know that I won and act more like the winner right now. And at that moment, the judge walks past like this and says, Zane first.
Nice. You got the sign.
Yes.
Man, that never worked for me.
Yeah, well, you know, it was a synchronistic moment, meaningful coincidence. But I've had moments like that.
Well, it was an omen. I know you speak a lot about omens, you know, personal omens, life omens, and you know, the universe has ways of guiding you in certain directions, certain places. I mean, you touched upon omens yesterday. We were talking about it. And you have to be aware. You have to be not searching for them, but you got to be able to recognize it when it happens. You know, and the body has a way of talking to you. And I feel like a lot of young guys, they miss that. You know, they don't have, you know, good body awareness. They don't know when's a good time to proceed or to stop doing something.
You know, there's always a lesson in everything. And the thing about it is, if you have something happens to you and you say, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me, you're probably wrong. And it might even be the best thing that happened to you, because when something seemingly awful happens to you, it just means you're going about it all wrong now. Turn around and go the other way.
Yeah.
It's saying, stop that, do something better than that. And so that you need it at the time.
Yeah.
And so you can't say that's bad. It's just, it's a warning from the universe.
Yeah. You talked about one omen, which was, Your fourth,
Oh, yeah,
fourth
four.
Mr. Olympia. Can you tell the guys a story, the omen about the fourth Mr. Olympia title?
You know, 3 seems to be my number.
3.
3 is my number. You know, there's a whole science of mathematics devoted to 3. It's called trigonometry, trigonometry, triangular measurement, trigonometry. And I taught trigonometry. And it seems like 3 is my first post office box in Santa Monica, P.O. Box 366. So 3 is present throughout my life. And actually going from 3 to 4 was my goal, because 4 is sort of like the number of completion. You go from the triangle, stable structure, to the rectangle. Yeah. And I was looking at it, saying, I'm going to get 4 now. 4. I really wanted to win 4 Olympias. Yeah. And it could have been in 1980, but unfortunately it wasn't. I had this bad accident, and then 82 I tried again, and 80 it didn't happen, and then 83 I was all set to do that, and I had back accident, tore my rotator cuff, and I trained with that. It prevented me from getting as big as I would have liked. And you know, in bodybuilding, especially with me, what it was is if judges see you big and muscular one year and then smaller the next year, it doesn't help you. No. You just get voted down. Yeah. And so I was great in 1983, incredible shape, definition, but I wasn't as big. And you know, I got the 4, but it was 4th place. And when I got that, I think, well, you know, that's it.
That's your omen.
That's my omen.
Yeah.
This is it. And I realized that was the end of my competitive career. I was 41, and I said, well, this is it. You know, I got to let go. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It's like the change of life, where you shift from bodybuilding as what you might call character armor. This is a theory I developed. There's 2 kinds of bodybuilding. When you start out, basically you're working on building up your ego, and what you're actually doing is you're putting on a suit of armor. You're putting on armor, basically to shield you from fear. You know, at your core, when you're young, you might say that's love and compassion, but you can't just have that out there all the time. You encounter hostile forces, and so you cover it up with a layer of fear, and then with a layer of muscle. It could be a layer of fat too, but that's your shield. That's bodybuilding as character armor. You're arming yourself. In competitive bodybuilding, it's like that. You're building layer after layer after layer, and the you is deep down inside what's really you. And then at the change of life, at maturity, you know, at 41 for me, basically it switched because I no longer had competition as my goal. Why would I train? Why would I get in shape? No, it's not about, I don't have that anymore. Tremendous difference in motivation. Now it was all about helping other people. I reached a point now, basically now it's bodybuilding as character completion, developing my character through helping other people, which I think you have to give it up in the end. Yeah. You know, you take what you've learned and you use it to help other people, because that's really what it's all about. Yeah. And that's what I'm doing now. I get a great deal of satisfaction of working with other people. Yeah. As a matter of fact, it's like me doing it when I could see somebody succeed, people that I help with training, at their training, and now it's with archery too. And I could see them getting really good at it, and that really satisfies me. I'm happy
well, you've been doing a great job helping other people. You helped me a lot. I remember the first time that we met, one of the key takeaways that I learned when I first met you, I remember you told me one piece of advice. You said, don't get big too fast. So you said, don't get big too fast. And, you know, like, I think what you meant by then was, you know, don't lift heavy, don't get injured, you know, because once you get injured, you know, you could get re-injured again. That's going to hinder your performance. So don't lift too heavy, and also don't get too heavy, because the midsection actually gets heavier. And this question that many people ask me, how do you keep a tight waist? Like, what do you have to say about people that are more concerned with, hey, how do I get my waist smaller? Is there anything they could do?
Well, I think don't eat a lot of food at once. Don't stretch your gut out, and you know, don't eat a lot, and then do a lot of ab work. Now, you've done remarkably well, even at this heavier body weight. You're at like 225. You still have a tiny waist. Yeah, it's amazing. You're holding a lot of your weight in your thighs right now, I think. Yeah. But basically, you know, that's the thing: is take your time. Learn to see what you look like to other people by getting photos taken, so you can see yourself from all angles. And take your time and do a good job. Yeah. But it's hard though, you know, it's hard for somebody, younger guys especially, they want results fast. Older, more mature people are more intent about going about it more gradually and making progress slowly. But in both cases, you need feedback of your progress. Yeah. And photos are the best way to get that.
Yeah. But also I think that getting big too fast is actually going to hurt the physique. Like we've both talked about it. The best we've looked is at the lower weight, not necessarily the higher weight. Actually, the higher we got in weight, on stage weight and muscle, you know, it kind of just throws off the line. So I think it is, like we talked about, it's important just to, you know, make steady, slow improvements rather than go jump 10, 15 pounds in muscle, you know, in 5 months' time or something, you know, because we tend to be asking a lot of questions, and sometimes we get asked questions to the wrong people, and they have the wrong advice for us. You know, hey, you know, how do I do better? Oh, well, you gotta get bigger. Hey, how do I go better? You know, well, you gotta lift heavier, put on more muscle, and that could lead to injury or ruining your lines and your flow. And you're right, it is a race.
Best advice I can give people is don't bulk up. And you know, I know that now, but in spite of that, in my career, I bulked up 3 times, and each time it was a big mistake. You know, I think the first time was I was teaching school in New Jersey, and I bulked up to 220. And whoa, I mean, I had a 38-inch waist and a 28-inch thighs, and squatting, you know, 20 reps with 325. And then I moved to Florida, and I came down to 190, and I looked real good for, you know, for a while. And then I don't know when the next time, oh, it was for the 72 Universe. I again bulked up. It was like 208. And I took photos, and I saw how bad I looked. It was only 5 weeks before the Mr. Universe. And I went into emergency training mode. And I had a lower back injury too, that I hurt my lower back squatting. And I got in great shape and won the contest, but it was like panic work the last 5 weeks. And then after that, I think it was 1982. I mean, you think I didn't learn my lesson already, because I wanted to go in the Olympia weighing 200, because you know, Joe Weider's was Frank, oh, God, look at bigger, eh? You know, so I thought, well, I'll see. And you know, I ruined my lines. I ended up getting second, but I could have won it if I just would have went in there my normal self. But you know, I mean, I learned a lot, and unfortunately, you know, that's a good thing about losing. If there is a good thing, is you still have the same game plan. You come back and improve upon it. Whereas if you win, you got to start on, you have get another goal now, which, you know, we're all interested in winning, but you can't always do that. And I think a lot of the really good gains you make and progress you make and knowledge you gain is by not winning.
I've been a runner-up in Mr. Olympia twice, and you know, like that helped me progress and get better. It was an acceleration of growth.
You know, I noticed this trend the way it was when I was competing. And it was basically 1975. I really noticed this. I went in this 1975 Mr. Olympia. It was in South Africa, and I really wasn't ready. I shouldn't have even gone, but I went anyway. And I made such a bad showing that when I saw it on TV, I was really angry about myself. And I went out and I remember we went bowling. Like I took it out on the pins, you know. And then I got back, and starting in '76, 2 things inspired me. First of all was the movie Rocky, Sylvester Stallone. That story, I really got inspired. And then the Olympics were that year. And so and that's when we posed at the Whitney Museum, Arnold, myself, Ed Corney. And I wasn't in great shape for that, but from that point on, I got in fantastic shape because I took out all the stops. And I noticed that what happened is my life, one reason that I got better through the years is everything in my life got better. My training situation, my living situation, my work, it all got better and easier and more and better at doing it. And so that enabled me to put more into my training. I had less, you know, other things to contend with. But generally before that, when I didn't win, it was like, you know, after the show, I think, damn it, I should have won. You know, it's political, screw that, you know. And I'd have this negative attitude for a while. And then I'd get an exhibition, and everything changed. They want me to go to posing it, and I'd start training really, really hard and get in shape, and then I was all set for the next round of next year coming up. And that was pretty much the way it was, because after a while I only had the Mr. Olympia contest in the autumn. Before that was Mr. America, you know, Mr. Universe, and then after that was the Olympia every year from, you know, first year I went in Olympia was 72. And
10 Mr. Olympias you've done.
10 Olympias, and I managed to get 3 of them.
Yeah, that's incredible. I remember you told me yesterday something that blew my mind. You actually had a real tan, not makeup tan, not a spray tan.
No.
You'd really tan.
I can't believe
you were able to get that dark. It was amazing.
I had a little place in Palm Springs I used to go to, and I'd lay on a raft in the pool and tan that way. And that way, I could keep going. I never really used any kind of sunscreen or anything. I just got really dark naturally.
Yeah. What else did you do to prepare for a show? Like preparation, like having a good tan is a good preparation. What else was a good preparation? Were you guys taking like diuretics, anything to lose water? Would you manipulate your water intake or your sodium intake? Because nowadays everyone's either getting rid of their water with diuretics, or they stop drinking water 12 hours before the show. Or some people like myself, I keep my water extremely high because I tend to flatten out if I remove my water. What were you guys doing?
I only took diuretics once, and it was early on, and I flattened out so much from it, and I got cramps, so I never did that anymore after that. And then as far as water, I never stopped drinking water. I would just sip water. I think that you don't want to drink a lot of water at a time or a lot of fluid at a time so that you're bloated and your waist is sticking out. And then I worked on keeping my waist small, and I did a lot of abdominal work.
Yeah. So what was your typical breakfast? Let's say morning of the Olympia. What did you eat?
And so I had to be at the auditorium at noon for prejudging. Okay, so up at 6, and I'd have a breakfast. I'd have maybe 3 soft-boiled eggs or poached eggs with about 8 ounces of calf's liver and baked yam.
Calf's liver.
Calf's liver and baked yam. And that stayed with me for a while. And then after I let that digest, and then about every 45 minutes I would have about a bunch of amino acids with a slice of baked yam. And I'd do that every 45 minutes right up to the show.
Wow.
Right up to the show. And I'd go over there. And the other thing was too, is I wanted to make sure that I was stimulus hungry for weights, because I didn't train. If the show was Saturday, the last workout I got might have been Tuesday. I was posing a lot, because it's about posing. It was posing. But really, I wasn't working out that much with the weights. But then when I pumped up immediately when I went backstage, immediately. And I never did a lot of pumping up backstage. I remember guys like, I remember Sergio Oliva when he was competing. Remember Sergio?
Yeah, oh my God.
He worked out, he got like 2 hours workout backstage. And he'd go out all blow it up, and then as he stood there, just deflate. And I never did that. I just did a little bit and then walk out and pump up when you're posing.
Was there anyone backstage that stands out, that like, was anyone playing mind games? I know in pumping iron, like somebody's t-shirt went missing, and like, was there any like people like staring you down or?
No, not so much for me, but I didn't know. A lot of times I would take a nap.
Oh, wow.
Just lay down.
Relax.
Yeah.
Not
I'm the
do
same
anything.
way.
I get
just
in
sit there.
I get in my little corner. I just stay away from it.
If you don't have it by then, you're not going to have it. I mean, there's nothing
yeah.
you could do at the last minute to make you achieve what you didn't already do in your training. So I was really prepared.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it was the fact that I had a lot of schooling in my life. I have degrees from 3 universities, including a master's degree, and there was a lot of test taking, and I got good at taking examinations. And for me, competing was like taking an exam. Preparing for I was good at it. I would prepare and then leave it, and then another preparation a day or 2 later, whatever. And it was sort of like training for the contest. I made that, and it had so many exams, so many exams.
Yeah, I understand. The best I've ever done a show is when I felt relaxed. And when I feel relaxed, actually my muscle tends to open up more. My lats could open up more. My breathing's better, and the muscle, it reflects in the muscle. If you're tight and nervous and anxious, you're going to be kind of narrow and a little like, bound up. What do you have in terms of, I know you're releasing a book, a posing book very shortly. Now, what kind of posing tips would you recommend for somebody that's looking to get on the Olympia stage? Like, what's your best piece of posing advice?
Practice the prejudging.
Practice the prejudging.
And I know nobody goes through that trouble, but basically there's 3 rounds. There's the standing there, okay, the relaxed round. And I would go out and get a tan when the sun was lower on the horizon, standing for an hour, 15 minutes in each position. And I would always stand with my abs flexed and my quads tensed, but I was relaxed doing it. And I think that when you're posing, you can get to the point where you can make all the muscles stand out yet be relaxed, and it'll show in your face. You don't want to show any kind of grimacing in your face or heavy breathing. I'd say practicing the posing, the last month especially, do more and more and more, because the contest is about that. It's not about working out. Especially the last 2 weeks, the closer you get, the more it's about posing, and posing will give you a great workout. I mean, If you've never done it and you start doing, a lot of guys get so sore from posing because they've never done it before.
Yeah.
They should be doing that ahead of time because that's what they got to do in a contest. It's
You're
not
right.
about working out anymore.
You're right. We tend to focus so much on the training and the eating
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
sleeping. Yeah, the judges don't see none of that. It's irrelevant.
Well, I think, the main thing is that when you're working out, the main thing is focus. Means to concentrate on one thing at a time only. And I was always very strict when I got to the gym like that. I would purposely go at a time when there weren't many people there so I could really concentrate on what I was doing. And I noticed that when I concentrated like that, I could do, I guess some people would call it amazing, but I remember one time, and I was curious. I did Roman chair sit-ups one time for a half an hour. I was like, well, I think I could do a half an hour, and I did, and I guess it wasn't too bad. So the next day, I did it for an hour. My lower back was a little sore from that, but the next day wasn't too bad, so I did it for an hour and a half. And eventually, then I did 2 hours the next day, and then 2.5 hours Roman chair sit-up. I focused, what it is your mind. I put my attention on the four corners of the room. It was one of the devices I had, and I was in the four corners of the room, imagining myself doing sit-ups there. In other words, it was sort of not in my body doing it. And, I realized that I could do whatever I set my mind to.
So focus.
Yeah, don't doubt yourself.
Yeah.
Don't doubt yourself. Just focus. And it means, it's about shutting your mind off too, and that's the thing is, we're always talking to ourselves. We have this internal voice, this self-talk, this internal dialect that goes on and on and on, and never stops. Well, I pay attention to that. And if you ever, here's the technique, if you ever want to stop talking to yourself, let's say you're worrying. Worrying is just what's going to happen. It hasn't happened, you're worried about it. It doesn't help it, it's harmful, stressful. Because all you have to do is just close your eyes and cross your eyes and look right here. And while your eyes are crossed, you will not talk to yourself. And when you do start talking to yourself, it's because your eyes come uncrossed. And the other thing is about doing that, you develop peripheral vision. Do you know that samurai sword fighters years ago in ancient times used to fight with their eyes crossed? Because when your eyes are crossed, basically you have peripheral vision. You see all of that, and when you turn, you see that and that. You see all around you, but it's out of focus, but you can see movement. And there are exercises you can do. This sounds crazy, but I used to do this. I would walk my dog in the park. I have a baseball cap, and I made popsicle sticks. I'd glue them together on a clothespin, and at the end I had a pink pearl, and I'd clip it and out there, and I'd walk my dog, and I only looked at the pearl, like that, and I'd be walking like that. And I would see things, but it was two of everything, and I walked right between them. And I'd walk around the park, just looking at the pearl. And after about 20 minutes, I was so blissful because my mind was shut off. The greatest peace you can have is shutting your mind off, is when you shut your mind off and there's nothing going on there, And so what I strive for is emptiness, is clearing it out. You don't have to be thinking all the time. And when you can shut your mind down, it's amazing what kind of good stuff you're going to get coming to you. It's like a perceptual filter. You screen out all the garbage. You're not, that's what you're dwelling on most of the time anyway. It's just irrelevant stuff. I don't know, but I'd say probably everybody's like that. I know I'm like that. And so one of the things I do is I say my mantra. That's what these beads are for. I'll take these beads and basically say a mantra, which is a saying that's uplifting, and I have a number of them that I use, and it basically crowds out negative thinking. And then it gets to the point where after I maybe do this for 5-10 minutes, there's no thinking at all going on, and I'm really in a very blissful spot and very, very peaceful.
Wow.
It's called samadhi. Peace that passes understanding. And so I get into those spaces, and that really helps me, make it through the day. Let's talk about the evolution of bodybuilding.
Yeah.
It's basically looking at the Olympia winners, I think, is the way now.
Well, how do you think things have progressed since your era? You got Steve Reeves, yourself, you have Arnold that went to Lee Haney, and so on and so on. What do you think? How is the progression going? The evolution of bodybuilding?
It's gone in the direction of bigger is better. But why? And I analyzed that. Why is bigger better? Well, you go to a contest. Let's say you go to the Orleans Auditorium where the Olympia is, a huge, huge place. Now, up close you have, remember Danny Padilla?
Yeah.
In 1981, he should have been Mr. Olympia. But you got this guy who's smaller and a lot of detail, a lot of definition. And when you're up close, like you're 20 feet away, he looks phenomenal. And he's standing next to Lou Ferrigno, who's giant, you know, not really the sharpest definition. But at the further back you get, the better he looks. Now, where is everybody seating in the auditorium? They're not sitting right up here.
Yeah.
They're way back there. And so you get all of that. That's why one of the reasons I think it's popular, because you know, most people see bigger stands out better the further back you get. And nobody's looking up close that much. We never see anybody. I remember in 1965, I was competing in IFBB Mr. Universe. And the first time, that was the first year Larry Scott won Mr. Olympia. And I had a chance, I was talking to him backstage. Up close, it was amazing. I mean, he had lines like this. It was just amazing. But when you see him further out, you didn't see any of that.
You lose all the detail.
How detailed he was up close. It was just, I was just blown away by that.
Yeah.
But it's your perspective. It's where you're viewing it from, I think. But you know, if you look at the different eras of bodybuilding, like Mr. Olympia tells us it all pretty much. In the 70s, you have three types. You have Arnold, basically big, small waist, you know, big muscles. You have Columbo, shorter, thick muscles. And then you have me. That's a standard. Basically, it's a sort of outlined in sculpture of Michelangelo's David. That's me. The Farnese Hercules, that's Columbo. Arnold is sort of a blend of two of them. Has the size, and he has, you know, some lines and flowing and, you know, in shape. And I think that we more or less laid it out. I think the three body types are more like archetypes for bodybuilding in the 70s. And then there was a period of time from 1976 up to 1984. Those 8 years where the winners from the Olympia were under 200 pounds. There's Columbo, there was me for the 3 years. Arnold stuck in there, we're not going to count that, you know, I think that was a fluke. But then we had Chris Dickerson and Samir. And then Lee Haney. You know, when I saw Haney place ahead of me in the Olympia, third place, I knew it was all over. I said, here come the monsters, they're back. I think he looked great his first year, great the last year, those in-between years, unchanging. But, you know, he had what I call the incumbency effect.
Yeah.
You know, they tend to keep the winner. You know, he's right in there, he's still good, you know, to keep him. And then Dorian Yates, more of the same, more of the same. I think Yates looked fantastic the year before he won Olympia. Then he started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, you know. Yeah. And then it was Ron Coleman after that. You know? And then it just hasn't gone back. But fortunately, they've started the classic bodybuilding thing.
But the classic physique guys now, like myself, when I compete at classic, I'm 210. So even classic physique is bigger than it's 70s bodybuilding. 70s bodybuilding, you competed your best years around 190. You look amazing.
That was me.
Yeah.
That was me. You know, but I think you can't blame the trend in the sport itself. I think it's more about the people who are winning, how they look and what they're, you know, it's like you have to sell it yourself, you know. And so, you know, I mean, you got a bigger structure than me. You could weigh 205, 210 and be really lean and defined and everything. And that will set a trend for it. It's people who win the shows with that kind of look that make it popular, and everybody tends to go for that.
Yeah. So let's foreshadow. 10 years from now, where do you see bodybuilding? Given all the trends that we've been seeing, you foreshadowed the monsters coming when you saw Lee Haney for the first time. And then we've seen the Ronnie Colemans, the Jay Cutlers. You know, these guys keep on getting bigger. Where does this sport go in 10 years?
They might be even bigger, but then I hope that somebody comes along, like, could be you. I mean, you're right in the pathway. You're still young, you're 32, got a lot of time. I mean, I think that you can make progress right up to age 60. You have like, what?
Yeah.
28 years.
Mm-hmm.
You got 28 years.
Yeah, I don't know about that, man. I can't be doing.
Well, you know, life sort of
gets
gets in the way.
Yeah,
I mean, it did for me.
Well, where do you see the look? Do you see the look? We're going to go backwards? Are we going to take a step back you know, from the mass monsters and go for a mainstream line look? Or do you think we're just going to keep on getting bigger, more enhanced?
Probably bigger, because that's what's being rewarded now.
Bigger,
Whatever's rewarded is going to continue. I would like to see it different. But, you know, I mean, maybe I got myself to blame and the other bodybuilders who are not part of selecting the winners. Who would be the best judges for contests? Former Mr. Olympias. Who else? No, you never see that. You never see that.
Yeah. Well, they should have maybe like you said, former Mr. Olympias, they have like a say, act as one judge. Or even the audience. I feel like the audience should have a say as well. I think that's why you're so popular, is because everyone could relate to your physique, because everyone wants to look good in clothes. But then when they take their shirts off, they want to look impressive as well. And I feel like you do the best. You're the best of both worlds. You know, 190, rip, lean, wide shoulders, small waist, great legs. I think that, you know, if you ask 9 out of 10 people, they would rather choose a streamlined, nice physique like yourself or myself versus, you know, someone that could barely fit in clothes. It looks enhanced.
You're right, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, I won 2 popularity polls like that. I think there was one by Muscle and Fitness. I came in first on that. And so most people do want that. And so I think that it would be nice if it went in that direction, but it's going to take a leader to take them there. I nominate you.
Thank you, brother. It's a big responsibility.
It is, it is.
Big responsibility.
Well, I think you could be up for it. I mean, you got a lot going on.
I think now, you know, the industry is shifting. I think people are more into more natural foods, natural lifestyle, natural way of living, less enhanced, you know. I think people are more aware of what they're putting in their bodies, and they're realizing maybe, you know, like maybe we've been moving too fast. You know, maybe we shouldn't be in a rush to be, you know, 275 pounds on the off season, breathing heavy. You see a lot of people, they're passing away young in bodybuilding. And it's very unfortunate, because now it just seems like drug protocols are being thrown around. Like, all right, you want to start competing? Here's drug protocol. You want to start competing? Here's drug protocol. But drugs don't make the champion, because they have no base. They have no hard work ethic that it takes to become its, you know, what I learned from you is the training is everything.
Yeah.
The training, the intensity, they don't, you know, people getting into sports, they don't have that yet. They haven't developed that character.
You know, one thing I learned, if you could do this, it would be great. What happens in the off season? Typically, somebody will train down for a contest and get defined and get in shape. And since they've sacrificed so much, they can't wait to start pigging out, and they balloon back up maybe 30 pounds, and they get heavy in the off season. Big mistake. Refrain from doing that. If you could stay lean in the off season, keep abdominals, then you could build muscle on top of that. You know, if you could put on 3 pounds of muscle a year, that's a lot of muscle. Look how big a 3-pound steak is. It's huge. Slice that up and put it in the important parts. You have a great different look. And so I think that just people are, you know, misguided, misinformed about what to do and how to train and how to keep it going. And, you know, this is like a fad for some people. They do it for a while, and, you know, you see progress, and for one reason or another, they stop, you know, go some other place, and they're in a hurry and they don't see it. Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau put it well. He should we turn our springs into summer? You know, can't we wait for summer to come on its own? Do we have to make it happen now? And that's what's happening now with the drugs and everything, is people want it now. What's that saying about Grubhub? I want it all. I want it now. That's the attitude. That's the attitude. Now, immediate gratification. I'm so mature. I've never learned to grow up. I'm like a baby. I have it now. I'm hungry. I want it now. Give me a lot of it too.
Yeah.
Sick. It's immature.
Yeah. I get many young guys in the gym. They come up to me and they try talking about things that are way advanced. You know, drug protocols, this, that. And meanwhile, they've only been training for 6 months, 7 months. They don't know the first thing that it takes, you know, and I always push them away. I was like, you know what, this is not for you. You know, you're not ready for this. Not for you, not for you, not for you. Remember, Victor Martinez said it right. He's like, everyone competing these days is like going into a gunfight with a knife. You know, and he doesn't want to be there with a knife in a gunfight, you know, and I think people, you know, the state of bodybuilding is, you know, to compete at this level, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And, you know, many people, they don't have the discipline, the time in the gym, the passion for the gym, the knowledge, the nutritional knowledge to even, you know, excel even with these compounds that they're taking and using. And I think it's something that's concerning. It's very concerning.
You know, the problem is, I think, is that I remember when they first started getting like the Masters contest in Mr. Olympia, they would have the regular contest, and then they'd have the Masters, and the Masters looked way worse because they weren't drug enhanced. They weren't, you know, and it just, the contrast was so obvious that people fell away from it. I think that's the problem. People are used to seeing all these, you know, big muscular bodies that aren't achieved by any natural means. And you know, I think that once you're exposed to that and you're a bodybuilding fan, that you expect to see that. In the words of one competitor, I think Wayne Domidia told me this, he said that, you know, one year, I think it was the Olympia in 1988, they drug tested and everybody came in looking not as good as they had been looking. And afterwards they complained to Wayne, who ran the show. They said, "Wayne, we don't mind paying $200 for a seat up front, but when we do, we want to see freaky muscle."
Yeah.
Well, you have those fans that want that, you know,
Yeah.
and if you cater to that, then basically you're not going to be able to cater to everybody. So
It's incredible. I love being here with you. I could sit here and speak to you all day. We've been doing it all day.
You're welcome
yesterday and
anytime,
today.
man, anytime.
And I know that you do provide these experiences for people that are interested. How can people reach you if they want to train with you or spend time with you? What's the best way for them to contact you?
email.
Email.
Yeah,
Where can they
email.
email you at?
Zane000, that's 3 zeros, 1 at AOL.com.
Great.
Just
Great.
email me, I'll get back to you. I answer all those.
Great. I know everyone's interested. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe to the channel. See more updates from myself and Frank Zane.